weren't able to join today can access this in the future. So I'm just going to start that recording now. Great. Thanks for your feedback in the chat. So the other thing I wanted to go on to mention here was actually I got a chat about the URL. So that's reports.cristhealth.org is where you access the CRS portal. Something I wanted to mention here is that each of the CRIS participants are set up with a point of contact, which is essentially an approver. And so that person at your hospital or your facility has the authority to grant you access to your reports. So if you're a brand new user and if you've never accessed CRIS reports before, if you go to this website, you won't be able to log in. This is separate from the other point of care clinical CRIS services where you have a username and password to log into either the encounter notifications or your clinical query portal. That's a separate login than this CRIS reporting services portal. And so we can help you get to that point of contact after the call, and I'll talk about ways to get in touch with us to find out who that person is so you can get credentialed. So moving back ahead, the last thing I wanted to mention on the subcard page is just that the different icons represent the different report types. So we have Excel reports, static reports, archived reports, the SAS program code, as well as documentation here. And you can see the key at the bottom of the subcard to let you know which report you're opening. I wanted to mention the wrench and spanner. So when you click on this tool here, you get a full list of all of your reports that you have access to. And so this is helpful just to make sure if you think you have access to a certain report, to confirm the exact access that you have. And you can also rearrange the different subcards if you find yourself coming in here and really needing to look at the readmission reports. You probably want to put that on the first page and maybe on the upper left-hand corner. So next up, I wanted to talk about the general elements that you'll see on each of these tabs within the suite. So as you can see across the top with the numbers and the titles, there are tabs for each dashboard. Each of these dashboards generally aligns with one of the tabs in the original RRIP Excel file. And so a lot of this work was translating those Excel files into an interactive Tableau dashboard. But there are brand new reports where CRIS engaged with the RAC and the RAC subcommittee and other users of our reports and developed brand new readmission dashboards. And I'll highlight a few of those a little later on. So up here on the top, the tools that you have available, refresh, revert, and pause. If you're experiencing slowness or issues with the data, I recommend using the refresh button. If you've applied filters to the dashboard and would like to lift those filters, I would suggest using this revert button, which will just lift the filters that you've applied to the dashboard. The filters are right below that. So every dashboard has a hospital filter, a need type filter, which is, as you can see, is still in development, and we're planning to include in here the HSCRC definition of a high or rising need patient with that filter, and then a payer filter. Below that is the data visualization, which is pretty consistent across all the dashboards. A print button on the upper right-hand corner, which, based on the dashboard type, you'll either have the option to print a PDF or an Excel file. And then reference info, which is my favorite piece of information that's consistent throughout these dashboards. This, as a really neat tool, gives you information on the base performance period, the grouper version, and other technical details. So without having to flip to a notes section or to another piece of documentation, you have that information right there in front of you to refer to. One other thing I wanted to mention here was, as far as the hospital filtering goes, is that the hospital filter aligns with what you saw in the original RRIP Excel files. So if you remember, a majority of those RRIP Excel tabs allow you to look at all hospitals' readmission data because they're at the summary level. With the dashboards that are more focused on the individual hospital and at the patient or visit level, that's where we lock down the hospital filter and only allow you to view the data for the index readmissions at your own hospital, at the hospital that you were granted POC approval for. So moving on to the first dashboard here, the landing page. In this page, and as you can see with my screenshots here on the right-hand side, there's a hospital filter, and it will either say all or POC approval, and this will let you know what a user will have access to. So this hospital filter will include all hospitals, and this report is based on, again, the RRIP methodology, using the same information in the regulatory Excel report, showing improvement, attainment, and revenue scales for the hospital that you have selected, and then a comparison to statewide, and then a line graph below, which plots both of these. And you see you have a trend line, this gray line in the middle, which is the selected hospital's case mix adjusted rate. There's also a toggle for monthly and quarterly. This was a common request from users because, as we all know, hospitals across the state are reporting on different fiscal years, and if a lot of hospitals requested the ability to look at the data monthly and or quarterly. So this is something we were able to improve upon, I think, with these reports. The next dashboard drills into the improvement scaling, and so this is pretty self-explanatory. This dashboard correlates to the tabs 4, 4A, and 4B of the regulatory Excel file. Again, all hospitals are included, and then there's a statewide comparison available to the user. The attainment dashboard, very similar to the last dashboard we looked at, tying to the RRIP Excel workbook tab 5. Again, all hospitals are available in the hospital filter. Next up is trends and locations, and so this is one of the most popular reports in the original suite of reports that we released back in 2015. And so this dashboard is based on what we call the inpatient readmission trends and locations original Tableau report. With this report, the user is only able to look at the hospital where they have POC approval for. And essentially what this does is the map will plot the zip code residence of the patient with a readmission visit, where the index hospitalization is the hospital that the user is credentialed for. And so the map does not show the location of the readmit hospital. It shows the location of the patient on their latest claim that then gets readmitted with an index visit at the user's hospital. So the chart below gives you that breakdown of the readmission hospital and shows you the readmission visits and the unique patient by the readmit hospital and by the month as you go from left to right. A couple other things that you can do with the trends and locations report is you can click on the readmission hospital on the chart, and then what that does is that filters the map above to only those patients and visits where that hospital that you clicked on was the readmission hospital. And then you can hover over each of the geographic areas, the zip codes, and look at the number of visits, readmit visits, and then the patients that roll up to those 49 readmission visits. I'm going to pause here for a minute because there are a couple chats that came through, and I'm just going to take a look at those. And it doesn't look like there's anything that we need to stop and address at the moment. So I'm going to continue. So that's the trends and locations report. Next up is the unadjusted hospital readmission trends. So again, another report that ties very tightly to the RRIP Excel report, except that in this report, we present the data with a line graph and also add index APR service line and index APR-DRG codes to this report. So you can filter by the different service lines or DRGs and look at your unadjusted hospital readmission trends. Again, this dashboard is built where you're only able to see your approved hospital in the hospital filter. With the case mix adjusted readmission trends report, very similar to the previous, except that it's case mix adjusted. The calculation for that is here. Again, this is a report where you only see the hospital where you're approved for. And you can look at the trends over months and you can, I didn't mention here that we also have a year filter so that you can select a single year or a multiple year to look at year over year or month over month. The next report is what we call the service line readmission analysis. So this is an exact replica of the Tableau dashboard in the original suite. The workflow is a little bit different, and this report is quite interactive. So what I wanted to do is just walk you all through a scenario on how you go about comparing the index readmission visit to the readmission DRG, or so essentially looking at the DRG on the patient's index visit and comparing it to the DRG on the patient's readmission visit. And there's a couple clicks involved in that process. So the next set of slides just shows you all how you'd go about that process. Again, this is another dashboard where the user can only see the hospital that they've been granted access to. So if a user wants to begin analyzing their hospital service line with the highest readmission rates and compare that and kind of drill into the DRGs from the index versus the readmit visit, they would follow the following scenarios. So selecting the year that you're looking at, in this case it's 2017, filtering on the percent readmissions column. So that's right here. And we see pulmonary has a 24% readmission rate. So let's drill into the pulmonary service line. When we click on this service line, we get two different pop-ups. We get a pop-up at the bottom, which has each of the APR-DRG codes that roll up to the 75 readmissions here. And we also get a pop-up which allows you to drill into the patient details. So this link will give you a list of each visit where the patient was admitted for a pulmonary condition and then ended up being readmitted. Of course, this is only available to users that are credentialed to access the patient level detailed version of this report. After you see that pop up, the next step to close out this scenario is that you'd like to look at, you have here the different APR codes that roll up to your service line. You'd like to investigate of these 46 readmissions with a COPD APR-DRG code, what was the DRG on the readmission visit? Is it consistent with the index visit? Is it something different? When you click on that, you get a final pop-up box on the lower right-hand corner that shows you that breakdown. So I think this is a nice report. It's very interactive, allows you to spot trends, download it, also with the ability to download some of this information and do analysis on your own. So this has always been a popular report. And like I mentioned, it's very similar to the original service line readmission analysis that was available through CRISP. Oh, we have a user question. So just going to pause for a minute for the user question.
Hi, this is Andy Zumbrum, and I appreciate everyone is anxiously awaiting the 2018 numbers. We did give people a preliminary number, which should be on the static reports, also on the portal, but we've noticed that CMS has recently in March updated their planned admission logic, so we are redoing the 18 reports. We're working with CRISP on that, so we haven't actually given CRISP the rate year 20 logic to present the calendar year 2018 data on these Tableau reports at this time. And then from the other question about the readmission being tagged at the month of the eligible discharge, yeah, you would be the eligible discharge and then the 30 days subsequent to that. If you're readmitted within the 30 days subsequent to that, then it is tagged to the index admission. That's correct.
Great, thanks, Andy. And feel free to jump in if you see any other chats that are relevant to the HSCRC. Thanks for that.
And a reminder, everyone, the chat feature is open, so go ahead and keep the questions coming, and we can pause the presentation to answer them, or some of them will be answering over text.
Great, thanks, Mary. Okay, so that wraps up the service line dashboard. Next up is length of discharge to readmission. So this is an example of a brand new readmission dashboard where we heard from users in the community that this would be important, clinically relevant information to have a breakdown of the hospital's readmission by service line, looking specifically at the number of days from discharge to readmission. And so this dashboard has a hospital filter on it, so only users can only view their hospital which they've been POC approved for. And essentially this is a frequency distribution. The bar chart is showing the frequency of days from index discharge to your readmission. So each of these bars represents the visits where the patient had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on days between their discharge from the index hospital to their readmission. And so also we have a statewide comparison and also have year and payer filters to drill into some of this information. So, so this is a brand new report. We're excited to hear everyone's feedback on it. If they think it's useful, feel free to send any thoughts, comments, suggestions our way on this one. The next tab is our forecasting tab. And so what this the idea behind this report is that what it shows you is your, this gray line represents your current case mix adjusted readmission rate. And then the colored lines represent your revenue scaling with the attainment and the improvement scaling. So what we did, we converted our original Excel workbook that had users' inputs into an Excel formula, you know, their forecasted readmission rate. And then that Excel formula would spit back out what the improvement in the attainment scores would be. And so we built on that. And essentially with this report, you can hover your mouse over whichever either lower or higher readmission rate that you're expecting and look at the subsequent improvement or attainment scores that align with that readmission rate. We have a chart at the top here to give you some of the details. And then, like I mentioned, below the line graph at the bottom. This was a report that we had a lot of feedback on and that users thought would be beneficial for their efforts for forecasting. So next up, the patient level details. I'm going to mention again that the patient level details file is still available. So in the beginning of the presentation, I showed you the subcard with the readmission. That Excel file is still available. This is available to be exported as well, but I know some users are comfortable with that original details file, so that's available as well if you want to use that file. But essentially, this is just an Excel grid, you know, plopped into a Tableau dashboard with different filters. Again, since this is patient level details, actually shows the details of each visit with flags for whether the readmission was at the same visit as the index hospital, and then some other elements here going along the right side. The screenshot doesn't capture the entire patient level details report, but when you go into the report, you can see all of the different columns that you have available to you. And so this is pretty straightforward. This is one of the more popular reports because it gives you that PHI level breakdown. And then again, only the approved users will have access to this PHI level report. Documentation is all in one place. And so as you can see, we have a drop down here to select what you're looking for. So things like the readmit norms, historical readmission rates, data dictionaries for all of the reports. If you want to better understand how we're defining these fields, how the logic is being calculated, HSCRC has provided those files, and we're hosting them here in this documentation tab. I like this much better than the older version. Everything's really in one place. This documentation section combined with that little blurb with the details of the dashboard, actually right within the dashboard, I think gives users a much better sense of what they're looking at, and so they can tie reports together and be more comfortable with the metrics that are reported. So that ties up the presentation. We had scheduled an hour for this session, and it looks like I got through this much quicker than I had hoped. I have an appendix with the slide deck, which we'll send out to everyone that joined the call today with some of the map tools that you can use on the trends and locations report. And this is just like a Tableau function describing each of the different ways to select the geographic areas. But at this point, I think what we want to do is open it up to questions and answers and hear some of your feedback. So what I'll do is send your questions within the chat, and then we can address those.
Yeah. There's a question about download capability for readmissions trends and locations.
Okay, so let me open up the Is the Excel format of inpatient readmission trends and locations still available? All the monthly details on one worksheet and available for export. Looked at it yesterday, unable to locate. So yeah, so that's something we can do in the future that's not currently available. Next question in the chat, will we have the ability to view the data by month and year or only full calendar year? So with the majority of the dashboards, we do break it out by month. Yeah, and so I know that the trends and locations report, and I'm just going to scroll back through the presentation here. Trends and location breaks that out by month, as does you know, the landing page with your official scores with 5A and tabs 5A and 5B. So if the person that asked that can clarify which dashboard they're looking at, that would be helpful. We have another comment in the chat about the inpatient trends and locations file and being able to export that in Excel. So that's something that we'll take down. I have another question about the filters that are being applied to the patient level detail. What filters are being applied to patient level detail? It looks like another tab controls the filter on the patient level detail, so some data might not be present. And yeah, I don't believe any other filters are being applied to this. This is filtering by the index hospital that the user is credentialed for.
Hey, Paul,
so if you're a Holy Cross user, you'll see your Holy Cross index.
Paul, this is hey, Paul,
go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, so Adam noted that there looks like there may be some sticky filters in this. I thought we tested for that, but we'll check again. And this is kind of just a quirk of Tableau. Sometimes filters from other dashboards will kind of be sticky on another dashboard. And sometimes you want that because when you cruise between dashboards, you want to keep your filters. But there are sometimes some situations where you'll have a sticky filter on a dashboard that doesn't have that filter, and it'll cause some errors. So we'll have our team look over that and see if that's a problem on this one. If it is, of course, we'll fix that.
Great. Thanks, Mary, for that insight. And that's a tricky situation because a lot of times when you want to look at all of your data across many of the different slices, you want your hospital filter to stay in place. And so that's what it looks like may have happened on this one. Okay. Any other questions from the folks on the call about the reports? So one thing I didn't mention is our support, one-stop shop for CRISP support, 1-877-952-7477, which is the toll-free CRISP support hotline. Our customer care team is available 9 to 5 and even off hours to answer your questions and get the right person in touch with you if you're having issues with your login or you see data discrepancies or if you have questions or additional requests for training. The 1-877 number and the support@crisphealth.org email address is really where you want to go to ask those questions. Okay, I see a couple new chats coming in. Can we filter the hospital across all dashboards, or do we have to manually select on each individual dashboard? And that's the comment that Mary chimed in on. That's something we'll have to look into. Currently, you have to select the hospital when you click on each of the different dashboards. And so we'll take this back to the development team and see if there's a easy, concise way to allow users to potentially stick the filter, as Mary said, so to select the filter on your first, say, the landing page, for example, and just have that hospital filter persist throughout the 9 or 10 different tabs. So that's a great suggestion. That's something we'll look into and be back in touch with you on. And then had a follow-up comment about the consistent filters for payer and year on all dashboards. So that is something that we'll also consider and see if, and I think that's a great suggestion as well, to set those filters at the start as soon as you log in. Maybe have a toggle for your year and your payer, and then going back to that toggle to either lift it or to persist it. That's something that we can definitely look into. Great suggestion. We have a more of a policy question here that came in that might be appropriate for HSCRC. How is it possible to have a favorable observed over expected ratio, but an unfavorable attainment rate? So that's something that I definitely can't address, but Andy, if you feel like taking that, feel free to chime in.
Okay, so the observed over expected ratio is just going to adjust your readmission rate to account for the vagaries of the severity of illness and the diagnoses of the patients who come to your hospital. But the attainment rate, hospitals are only eligible under the rate year 19 logic, which is showing up here, or the rate year 20 logic, to receive reward on an attainment basis if they're already at the 25th percentile of across the state. So you may be doing well compared to what you are expected to be doing, and that is adjusted down on your case mix adjusted rate. But then you would need to be at the top 25th percentile across the state in order to begin receiving attainment rewards, and then you max out your attainment rewards at the 10th percentile. And additionally, the attainment target is further adjusted by your out-of-state ratio. So when Paul was showing that screen is the attainment, the out-of-state ratio is a little bit crudely adjusted right now. We're using Medicare data from CMS, and so those are unadjusted Medicare numbers to produce those out-of-state ratios, and then we just are multiplying that against your case mix adjusted rate. So for some of the border hospitals and some of the hospitals who have out-of-state more readmissions on the out-of-state basis, their case mix adjusted rate will be actually adjusted upwards to account for readmissions that are occurring outside of the state.
Great, thanks, Sandy. All right, I think I hit all of the questions that came through in the chat. If I missed one, please type it in again, because there's a lot in there. And so either please type in that again, or unmute yourself if you want to ask a question over the phone. And we'll wait for a couple more minutes, and if there are no other questions, we thank everyone for taking the time out to view this presentation, and we hope everyone is able to use these reports and gets a lot of value out of this enhanced suite of readmission reports. We definitely put a lot of time and effort into these, and so we hope that they're useful across the community. Last thing I wanted to mention was that we'll send out the slide deck to everyone that joined after the call, and then we'll have a recording available. Unfortunately, not the beginning of the call, which I forgot to add that recording feature on, but we'll have a recording of the majority of this presentation available in a week or so for your colleagues to view if they weren't able to join today. Great. Well, we'll wrap it up now, give you back an extra 15 minutes. And thanks again, everyone, for taking the time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Paul.